Onshape tutorial, we will learn how to do a chair like this, consisting of different parts in one design in Onshape. Okay. So in Onshape, you should have created yourself a folder for your chair designs. In there, then you can create your documents. So we're going to say chair 4 for me. So as before, click on the sketch tool, click on the front and turn it towards you. And we're just going to start by drawing a rectangle, which is the maximum dimensions of the size of the chair. So 500 this way, and then the height. Press enter and enter the height, which would be, say, 900. And then we'll draw a line across the middle. And then just trim away lines which I know I'm definitely not going to use, like this line across the top. So this is the trim tool. By now you should be familiar with most of the tools across here if you've worked your way through your tutorial. Alright, so that's shape. I don't actually want a perfectly vertical line here, so I'm just going to drop a line at an angle. I'm going to enter, say, 475 for the height, or for the length of that back piece, for the backrest. Press enter, and then going to use the dimension tool. I'm going to measure the angle between this line and that line, and I'm going to enter that to 100. Yeah, if you've seen that, it moved the wrong line. It didn't move this line. It could be that your chair actually does have a slight tilt up that way as well. It may not, it may, depending on your design. But to make sure that line doesn't move, just Control Z. I'm going to select this line, and then up here in this toolbar, drop down menu, you've got something called Fix. Alright, so that means that line is now fixed and should not move. So let's just test it. If I put in 100 here, okay, so it now moved that line in relation to that line, which is much more useful. I shall delete this line, don't want it anymore. Obviously there's many ways of creating this line or shape of the side of the chair. This is the best way, I think, to start with. You can obviously now dimension. So I might change that distance. I might decide to make that by 450 instead, be a bit shorter. I could then look at that distance as well. 450 sounds correct. Again, you've done the research. You should know the sizes of each part of your chair. Now what I'm going to do is use the offset tool, this one. Click here, click on the lines, so they turn orange, and I'm just going to put it slightly apart so I can double click on the number that appears and change it to, say, 18 mm, which would be a very common thickness of sheet material, which could be laminated or pressed or bent, steam bending for a lot of timber into this sort of shape. But you would never get angles like this in wood. You would never get 90-degree corners like this in a bent piece of wood. So what you want to do, or perhaps if I go back, so again, this is a great thing about the Command Z tool. I'm going to go back to that original sketch. So before I use the offset tool, I should actually use the fillet tool and round off these corners. I'm going to make quite big radiuses on those corners, so it looks a bit more realistic, I think. Oh, then do it here. So basically select that line, then select the line where it meets 90 degrees. The radius will appear, and then just move the cursor away and left click once. And that looks better. So now I use the offset tool. And drag it out. Double click on the measurement and 18 mil again. Let's roll into the top, use the line tool, and just close the sketch to make it a profile. So you can now see it's filled, the whole area is filled with the colour, which indicates you've drawn a perfect set of lines, all drawn correctly all the way around. So that's the sketch for the main part of the chair. So let's accept that sketch and extrude it. And let's make it about 450. Leave it on new, so it creates a part, and accept that. So we've now got the first part. Alright. Before we move on, we will again use the fillet tool. And now we will fillet round off the edges of the chair. Let's try 200. Maybe a little bit less. Again, it's up to you what measurements you choose for your chair. So fillet tool again. And that should be okay. Again, this is just my idea. You can do any sort of shape you want here. You can cut out parts of the back. Maybe you can make a handle here so people can pick it up easily. To do that, you could just sketch straight onto the surface with a ellipse tool. So up to the top here, a bit narrower maybe, smaller. So enter the distance you want, 50. Even measurements like that should be worked out and researched. What's the size of a hole which would be perfect for people's hands to go through? Obviously, if it's a handle, you should really be thinking about things like the 95th percentile. What's the larger hand that is needed to go through here? So what sort of dimensions would they be? And I shall just extrude through. Remove. Remember, you have to select remove over here. That's the hole. You could do other designs to the back. So let's put in a central line. So what I'm doing here is drawing a central line in the middle. Let's make that a construction line. So remember this line, construction line converts from lines which will create the main part of the sketch, and then maybe you want lines which are just construction lines which help you create other drawings. What I'll do, just experimenting here, I'll go back to the circle tool. Just create a series of circles coming down from here, and smaller towards the bottom. Again, it can be quite random, it doesn't have to be. So we can create more. Well, yeah, you can see here these are still construction lines, so you need to change that. So let's just press here. So let's just click on these, select these lines which you've drawn, or the circles you've drawn, and click on this construction tool. Convert them back to proper lines. I'm going to add in some over here. You don't have to measure them all, they don't have to be specific sizes. You can if you want to. Something like that. Looks okay. So I want the same on the other side. I want them in exactly the same place, so it's symmetrical. So I'm going to use the mirror tool. So it says select the mirror line. And select the mirror line, and it says select entities to be mirrored. And it reflects them across this central line. Easy. and click remove. And that's it. Right. You could do the same here. Again, you could take parts out of the sides of it. You can do all sorts of things to make it your own design. Now we will do the side arms. So sketch, and we'll start the sketch onto the side here. And we'll use the spline tool. So I'm going to start where I think the back. It's like a curved, slightly curved arm of the chair. So I'm going to start by here. The spline tool needs to be clicked. You can control the curve quite easily. Double click when you want it to finish. Then I want the thickness, so I'm going to use the offset tool again for the thickness, the same way I did for when I drew this sketch. So use the offset tool, click on that line, and again I'm going to go up the way, down, and enter 18mm. So it's the same material you're using for the arms as for the main body of the chair. As before, finish off the sketch by joining the ends of it. And that's the sketch. Now extrude it. Make sure you've got all the parts selected. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to make it a new. I'm not going to add it to this part, I'm going to make it a new part. When you click new, you'll see here, it's created a new part. I'm going to make it about 70mm deep. Accept that, and you've got that. Alright, so that's a different part. It's going to be quite useful for all sorts of reasons. For showing, presenting different parts of the design. For adding colour to it, it's easier to add colour to different parts. And so on. Right. So you've got one on one side. I want to make another one on another side. What I need to do, I need to have a mid plane to reflect this part to the other side. I don't have a mid plane here, so what I need to do is make one. So under here, under the plane tools, I go to plane. And then over here, under offset, choose mid plane. Again, you can experiment with this. Lots of ways of creating planes and angles and a set distance and offset from a certain surface. It can be very useful to learn about this. Mid plane. I'm going to select that face. And I'm going to turn around and select the other face on the other side. You will see, the transparent, but you'll see it's created this new plane in the middle of the chair. So accept that. Then what I will do is I'll select part 2 and I will choose the mirror tool. So you've got part 2 selected. I now click on mirror plane and I will click on this plane and hopefully it'll work. There you go. Sometimes you have to move it just to be able to select, and you'll see it'll appear over here. And again, don't add it, make it new. So make again another part. Right. Accept it. What we will do now is create the piece underneath, which holds this arm to the body of the chair. Again, let's turn it around. Again, sketch onto this surface. Again, there's lots of different ways of doing this. You can create your own. This is just one way I'm simulating this. So I'm going to start here from that line. Draw down about 200. You can change this later. I'm going to draw out the same about 200. It depends on the size you've drawn your chair to, you have to draw it. I'm going to bring it up here, and again, let's make it 200. Let's just escape. I don't want to draw any more lines. I can set the angles. Let's see what happens if I set the angles. So I click that. click this line, move away, and you've got the angle. So let's say the angle is 105. Yeah, not too bad. Same again for the other side. It's a bigger angle. Let's try and move to 105. Yeah, that's fine. Now we need to use the fillet tool. Big. Let's make it a bit less, 60. I will now draw a line. I'm going to draw a line roughly in the middle here, all the way across to the other side. I'm going to use the offset tool. It's going the wrong way, so let's put it that way. And we can make it, say, 5 mil. Again, all these dimensions are up to you to change and decide what to do. Click on this line, again, go this way. I shall zoom in and I will trim away some of the lines I don't want anymore. Put the 2 circles in for the 2 holes. There's 2 holes where 2 bars go through the bottom here. Let's just make those 25. I'll put another one over here somewhere for the time being. 25. Again, I'll use the dimension tool. So click on the center of that circle to the base. So you get the distance from the bottom to the center of the circle. And I'll make that 25 as well. Do the same over here. And then again, from the center of the circle, we shall make the distance from here to here the same on both sides. So drop it down, and we'll say 10. Same. Excellent. What you can also do up here to make it a bit more realistic is have like a bracket-like band on the end of this piece of metal or plastic, whatever it is, that sits just below the wooden part, which could have screws attached to it or bolts into it, which attach this arm to this frame that holds the arm in place. So roll in and click on this. And we'll enter 25, go straight down, enter 5, and then just come back. You'll see it actually is parallel. You'll see it actually sort of snaps and it will be parallel or at 90 degrees to this line. Draw straight way back and zoom in. I can click escape to stop drawing the lines, and again use the trim tool or the scissors. I can cut away lines I no longer need. Not quite realistic, but gives you an idea of what you can experiment with. You see on the other side, so from the back, let's follow the edge of that curve of the arm until it's nearly 25. Enter 25. Bring it down at 90 degrees. Bring it back at 90 degrees. And trim tool. And that is the sketch on the side. So what we're going to do now is before, accept the sketch and extrude. So let's select the parts that you want to extrude. That's it. Make it a little bit thicker, at 60 maybe, or 50. It could be the same width as the whole arm, but it doesn't have to be. Make sure it's new, so you've got a new part being created. And there you go. You could even go in here and create sketch on to here, and make the 2 holes for bolts or screws to go through, for example. Yeah, I'll let you do that. That's pretty straightforward if you want to have a go at doing that. Let's just come back. So, like the arm, I want to reflect this across. So select the part, so it turns yellow. Choose mirror again, and click on the mirror plane and select the central plane. And that is pretty much the shape. We have a bottom piece which I created. I'll show you an interesting way of doing this. I want to draw on this central work plane now. So we click sketch, select that central work plane. Let's turn around. So what I want to do is I want to draw on here. That's the plane I'm on. But I want to replicate the same sketch I used for this, or parts of the sketch. So there's an interesting tool called the project or use project convert tool. If I click on this, you'll see what happens. So if I choose that edge, you'll see that it appears here. It's hard to see this. Yeah, see that? That's now in the central work plane. I'm selecting on these edges using this tool, and it projects the edge which you selected onto the work plane you're presently working on, which is a very, very useful tool. It might take you a while to work out how useful that is, but it's a very useful tool. I want the holes. See? I also want bottom line or edge. I think if I just select here, if I just select the bottom of that, there you go. It projects it across here. All right. So again, the project tool, really, really useful for projecting edges from one object onto another work plane so that it matches. So it's exactly in the same place and aligned with it. Okay. So what we want to do now is just cut out or trim some of the excess lines on this. Roll in. You don't actually have to do this, but it's just a neater way of working. So that's this in the middle. So accept that sketch, extrude, select it. This time we want it to go both ways at the same time, so we want a symmetrical. Let's enter a value, say 100. Yeah, that looks perfect. We want to make it a new part, but it would be a part or a component that would sit underneath and somehow be attached to this base of the chair. There are probably some sort of bolts or screws attaching it to this part. Again, you can get really detailed and put in all the bolts and screws and nuts and be much more complex than this. This is quite a simplistic, not accurate, not feasible, not realistic at the moment in the way I'm drawing it. Okay, but it just builds up your skills in the software. So this will be fine. Let's click new. And that's it. So one last thing, simple. Just add the bars that run across the bottom. Make sure from the center of the circle, enter the value, the same value as the original holds. Or you could actually use, again, the project tool. Just select that edge. And it will project it onto there. And then accept that, and let's extrude that sketch and that sketch. Don't know why it makes them both different colors, but we need to go the other way. Of course, if you know the distance, you can just add one. I believe it's 600 or 600. No, sorry. It's 450, 550, I think it is. Yep. And again, make it new, so it's creating new parts for everything. Okay, so that's your chair finished. So as I said, you're not aiming to copy this for your own chair, you're aiming to make it your own. Right? And remember, you can change your chair design from your final solution as much as you want. You may realize that it's just not possible to create your design in a realistic way on the software. One other thing I'll just quickly show you. I think I've shown you before in other tutorials here. But if I go to, if I right click on each part, I can now add a color to each part. Unfortunately, this software Onshape doesn't allow you to really sort of give the appearance of materials. You have to use other applications to do that, but it can apply a simple color like this. Okay. Part 3, no, part 4, sorry, part 4, part 5, let's see if it does it together. Yeah, appearance of 2 parts. I think you give it whatever color you want, it's up to you. Again, perhaps try to make it look a bit realistic. Give us a darker color. And that is it. Well done. If you're getting to this stage and you can do tutorials like this, you should by now be able to create your own interesting design. Remember, don't copy this, create your own. Thank you.